You are listening to The Hero's Journey. I'm Dan Zarzana.
And I'm Jeff Garvin.
Let the journey begin.
Welcome to the sixth. How is this our sixth Hero's Journey Christmas? Six, Dan.
Because our parents were right when they said time passes faster when you get older.
I feel attacked. Starting with Die Hard in 2017, we then went on to A Christmas Story, The Nightmare Before Christmas, Christmas Vacation, It's a Wonderful Life. Do you have a favorite?
A Christmas Story, hands down. That is my favorite Christmas movie of all time, and I don't anticipate that ever changing. So when we got to discuss that movie, that was a highlight.
Strong.
What about you?
That's my favorite Christmas movie too. So I have to say that.
Oh, it is? Oh, okay.
But from a hero's journey perspective, I really enjoyed our differing approaches to It's a Wonderful Life because I expected that to be a very formulaic movie when we watched it, and it's deceptively complex. So I really enjoyed our complete clash on It's a Wonderful Life and the shrapnel that embedded itself in our analyses for episodes to come.
Yeah, and our friendship has just barely recovered since. It's been a rough year.
Barely. So what are we adding to the list this year, Dan?
Well, in third place and on the naughty list with just 9% of the vote was a brand new A Christmas Story Christmas, sequel to our now favorite Christmas movie ever. But when we put up the poll, that film had only been available on HBO Max for like 11 days. So that probably explains why very few people voted for it. Yeah. I'm definitely going to watch it this year, though.
Me too.
Cautiously, I know that there was another sequel called A Summer Story that came out closer to the release of the original Christmas Story. And that was not received very well. And I've actually never seen it.
Yeah.
But the fact that so many of the original cast members came back for this one, that gives me hope. 40 years later.
Yeah, and I hear that Peter Billingsley has been trying to make this movie for a long time. So
really?
Yeah.
Oh.
And there's some Peter Billingsley crossover in this film, which we'll have to talk about.
Spoiler! In second place, with 32% of the vote, was the 1990 film Home Alone, a film that spawned 5 sequels. So basically, it's the Fast and the Furious now.
And the recipient of the biggest gift under the tree with 59% of the vote, almost a 3/5 supermajority, was Elf, the 2003 film directed by Jon Favreau. Not the Jon Favreau who was a speechwriter for President Obama, not that.
Oh.
That's John Edward Favreau, you cotton-headed ninny muggins. I'm talking about the other Jon Favreau, who was, other than his appearance in Swingers, was virtually unknown at this point, but whose 2008 film Iron Man, you may have heard this film Iron Man, launched the Marvel Cinematic Universe as we know it, and who is now one of the highest grossing directors of all time.
Well, now it makes sense. I am a cotton-headed ninny muggins.
Elf was released in theaters on November 7, 2003, and earned $32.1 million opening weekend, which very nearly recouped its $33 million production budget right out of the gate. The film went on to earn $225 million globally during its theatrical run.
I'm sure Cutthroat Island is totally okay with that, not jealous at all. Elf opened number 2 behind The Matrix Revolutions and really had no chance to climb any higher than that because the following week saw the release of the Russell Crowe nautical adventure Master and Commander Far Side of the World, which stole the top spot from the Wachowski spectacle. A few weeks later, the conclusion to Peter Jackson's fantasy epic, The Lord of the Rings, The Return of the King, hit theaters, and everybody else say goodnight, Gracie.
There were no major award considerations for Elf, though it was nominated for a couple of Teen Choice Awards. The film stars Will Ferrell in his first starring role.
That sounds weird to say.
Yeah, it really does. James Caan, Bob Newhart, Ed Asner, Zooey Deschanel, Mary Steenburgen, one of my favorite actresses, plus some smaller roles played by familiar faces we'll mention when we get to them.
And in a coincidence that means absolutely nothing to anyone, the composer of this film's score, John Debney, also composed the score for last episode's movie, Cutthroat Island.
You know, that might mean something to John Debney, dear old cynical Dan, because I think you need some more Christmas spirit.
I think you're right, Jeff. My clausometer is reading -1 this year. Okay, let's save Christmas. Pack your New York City snowglobe, pull on your uncomfortably tight gold elf spandex, and wave goodbye to your friends at the poor man's island of misfit toys. Goodbye! Goodbye, Mr. Arctic Puffin. Goodbye, flounder-faced polar bear. This is the hero's journey of Elf.
Act 1 of the hero's journey begins with the ordinary world, the world of common day. This is the opening of a story where we get to meet our main character and see them in their status quo normal life. Like many movies that we've covered, there's some backstory you got to know before you even really get into this creature's ordinary day, this character's ordinary day.
Creature.
Oh, wow. It's a creature. He's an elf. He's a man. He's not a creature.
You mean just like It's a Wonderful Life, there's a prologue?
Oh, maybe a little bit. Okay, come with me on this journey. It's Christmas Eve. In an orphanage, a nun puts an infant to bed and tells him maybe by next Christmas you'll have a home.
Oh.
Then, during Santa's annual visit to this orphanage, that curious infant stows away in his bag where, unbeknownst to Santa, but known to us, he hitches a ride to the North Pole. After surprising Santa and the elves, like, woo, there's a child, a man-child. He is adopted by Bob Newhart.
Santa says, what in Sam hell is that?
You gotta love the dialogue in this movie. Just Ed Asner as Santa.
That's when you're like, okay, yeah, that's the Ed Asner aspect of Santa.
Find the most irascible actor we can to get to play Santa. I love it. He's adopted by Bob Newhart and raised as an elf, never knowing that he's really a human. And they call him Buddy because the tag on his diaper says, Little Buddy Diapers. It reminded me of how in Back to the Future, she calls him Calvin because
Calvin.
his underwear says Calvin.
Why do you keep calling me Calvin? Calvin Klein? It's written all over your underwear.
That's the best Leah Thompson impression I've ever heard. Full confession, I've never heard anyone do a Leah Thompson impression. So the problem is with
Christmas, Jeff. You should try being nicer to me.
This episode is, let's just go straight to the drinking. So they're raising Buddy as an elf. The problem is he's relatively giant and he's basically incompetent at elfcraft.
Yeah.
Even Ralphie from A Christmas Story can tell he sucks at building. That's right. Little cameo.
Yep.
By Peter Billingsley.
Why don't you just say it? I'm the worst toy maker in the world. I'm a cotton-headed ninny-muggins.
No, buddy, you're not a cotton-headed ninny-muggins. We all just have different talents, that's all.
Seems like everyone else has the same talents except for me.
So Buddy is deemed special and relegated to the lowliest of elf jobs, toy tester. Papa Elf, a.k.a. Bob Newhart, takes him on as his apprentice tinkerer, teaching him how to work on Santa's sleigh. Buddy is what we call a catalyst hero. He doesn't change much during the course of this story. He exists to change everybody else.
Right.
So the character who changes the most during the course of this story, I would argue, is Buddy's birth father, Walter Hobbs, played by James Caan. And as we go through, I may mention a couple of things about his adventure. But as I was analyzing this movie, I really enjoyed seeing how, I think what's the other movie we did recently that had a catalyst hero?
Oh, Remember the Titans.
Yeah, Remember the Titans, exactly. So Coach Boone really shows up in this town and changes everybody. So this time I really sank my teeth into how the hero's journey of the catalyst hero unfolds. And it put a little tint on how I saw the hero's journey. So I'm going to enjoy that as we go through this. But that's what I see as Buddy's ordinary world.
A lot of people down south don't believe in Santa Claus.
What? Who do they think puts all their toys under the tree?
Well, there's a rumor floating around that the parents do it.
That's ridiculous. I mean, parents couldn't do that all in one night. What about Santa's cookies? I suppose parents eat them too?
Second segment is the call to adventure. The hero is presented with a challenge which renders them unable to continue living in the comfort of the ordinary world. So after overhearing his boss Ming Ming, played by Peters Billingsley, telling another elf that he doesn't think Buddy knows that he's human, Buddy runs home and his adoptive father tells him the truth, that he is human and that his birth mother, Susan Wells, got pregnant after a little fling with birth father Walter Hobbs, played by James Caan. But James Caan's character never knew that Susan Wells got pregnant, and mom gave little baby up for adoption. He further explains, as he hands Buddy a New York City snow globe, that his father lives in New York City and works in the Empire State Building depicted in the snow globe, and does not know that Buddy exists. So Buddy flails around outside in trauma and runs into Leon the Snowman, who says that this is probably Buddy's best chance to learn his true identity and encourages him to go to New York and find his birth father.
Papa says my real father lives in a magical place far away. I don't know what to do.
At least you have it, Daddy. I was just rolled up one day and left out here in the cold.
Well, that brings us to refusal of the call. Confronted with fear of the unknown, our hero refuses to engage in the adventure. Sometimes we get refusal from within the hero themselves saying, I'm not going to do this, and sometimes from without, where other characters or forces pop up to prevent the hero from starting their journey. So when Buddy gets this news, he's so overwhelmed that he faints, dead faints, and lands face down on one of the elves, crushing him to death. It's the first fatality in this movie, and it was shocking to me. Just like the Paperboy.
Oh, in Better Off Dead.
Crushed dead.
Here we go.
Such
Here
violence.
we go.
That's really what's wrong with American cinema. It's just the casual slaughter of elves. Now, the elf is not dead. And then when he finally comes to, he runs off and hides in this comically tiny elven toilet. Those were really the strongest moments of refusal I could see, because past that point, he's pretty into the idea of going off on an adventure.
The main point of refusal that I picked out was Buddy telling Leon the Snowman, but I've never even left the North Pole. That's his moment of doubt.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
The next segment is Supernatural Aid or Meeting with the Mentor. This is where the hero receives counsel on how to operate within the special world. Biggest mentor in this movie, and it's really no surprise when you're talking about elves, is Santa, played by Ed Asner, is the main mentor as I saw it, coaching Buddy on New York City. Don't eat the gum off the street. It isn't free candy. A lot of Ray's pizzas claim to be the original, but the real original is on 11th. Don't go to peep shows. And that your real dad, Walter Hobbs, is on the naughty list.
Yeah.
We cut to a shot of James Caan essentially discussing a repo of books from an orphanage because the orphanage missed their payment. They didn't even donate the books to the orphanage. They sold the books to the orphanage.
He's probably taking books away from the orphanage where his son was abandoned. What a D-hole. But setting up that great dichotomy between the happy, idealistic world of the North Pole and arguably one of the most cynical places on the planet, New York City.
Santa continues, though, and says that not everybody is on the naughty list forever. Some people can be saved. All they need is a little Christmas spirit. And Buddy says, well, I'm good at that. I can give Christmas spirit. Do you have anything to add to that? That's all I've got.
Just one, which is when Papa gives him that snow globe of New York City, we see a close-up and we see this sort of idyllic fantasy snow falling on this, model of New York City. And I think that is supernatural aid because that's an untarnishable image that Buddy holds in his mind of what the magical place of New York City could be. And that's really the place that he transforms it into. This is like Buddy's magical amulet that he carries to preserve against all of the negativity and the stress that comes along with the real world of New York City. He carries that like a totem. So I thought that was supernatural aid coming from Papa, who then says, I'll always be here for you.
I like it.
Crossing the threshold. The hero must pass a barrier to enter the special world, and this crossing further represents the hero's commitment to taking on the adventure. So Buddy says bye to Mr. Narwhal, steps onto his ice raft, and embarks on his journey to New York. Now, there are some things that I think are tests here. Like has to go through the candy cane forest and over the mountains. This is very yellow brick roady. But I think that the real crossing of the threshold moment in this film is when Buddy steps out of the Lincoln Tunnel and into Manhattan, because that's a rite of passage. Anytime you visit New York, if you fly into JFK, or even you end up coming through out of a tunnel from under the river into, and it's always a giant, like, wow, now you're in the city. Like, you see the city from afar, you go into a tunnel, and then you come out and you're in it. And that is such a great crossing of the threshold moment. And they couldn't have picked a better tunnel. That's like the iconic, dumps you out right in Midtown, right near the Empire State Building. So I thought that was really the crossing moment from a visual film storytelling perspective.
Okay. I've never been in the Lincoln Tunnel. I've never had that experience that you just described. So I don't know what that is, coming up out of the darkness and seeing Manhattan laid out before you. So my crossing was Buddy literally jumping off of the snow and onto the little ice floe and floating away. That was him. And it's the ice detaches, which is a symbol of him being detached now from the North Pole.
Absolutely.
So that was a good visual symbol, I thought.
It's a fun, goofy sequence where they take us really out of even the fantasy set design of the North Pole, which is very like Santa's Village amusement park almost.
Yes.
And then we get to the candy cane forest, and then we're in the real forest, and then we get to a road. So they really do a good job.
He crosses the Misty Mountains.
Yeah, exactly. Past the Eye of Sauron.
That's what I thought of when you see him stomping across this snowy ridge of this mountain. I'm like, oh, wow, that's the Fellowship right there, crossing the...
Yeah. All right, well, that brings us to the end of Act 1.
My goodness.
Let's sidle over to the Campbell Cafe for a cup of joe.
Hey everybody, welcome to the side quest at the Campbell Cafe, where Jeff and I take a break from the current journey, pour ourselves a cup of joe, and discuss other quests we've undertaken recently. Hey Jeff.
Hey.
Since our last episode, how have you followed your bliss?
Well, I promised I would narrow it down to one item instead of listing everything I've done, and I lied. I'm going to talk about more than one thing. I started Shadow of the Tomb Raider, and it's awesome. That's all I'm going to say. It's awesome. I love it. But the thing that I wanted to talk about was I listened to the audio book of Heat 2.
I read the novel.
Yes! I love it.
So let's talk.
Okay, so for those of you who are unfamiliar, Heat was a film made in 1995 by Michael Mann, starring Al Pacino as a major crimes, robbery, homicide detective in Los Angeles, and Robert De Niro, who is a high-stakes robber. And it's essentially the story of these two characters sacrificing the rest of their lives just to pursue each other. It's a cop versus robber story, high drama.
It's one of my favorite films.
It's top 5 films for me of all time. To my surprise, this year, Michael Mann announced that he was releasing a novel that he co-wrote with Meg Gardner, an established thriller writer, called Heat 2. And I was like, what? What? And so I have all these conjectures about why he might have done this, but I listened to the audiobook and Dan read the novel. So Dan, I'm dying to know, did you like it?
I did. Part of the reason why this had to be a novel is the scope is huge. The film Heat is a focused cat and mouse crime drama. Heat 2, the novel, is this world-spanning, takes place over decades. You're jumping back in time. You're getting Neil's history in Chicago and Detective Hannah. He started in Chicago as a homicide detective before both, their paths brought them both to LA, as we see in the first film. Oh, and Chris Saherlis, basically, Val Kilmer's character. The meat of the novel is his life after the events of the film.
Yeah.
I thought the ending was satisfying. What did you think?
I loved it so much. It had one weak spot. The rest I thought was awesome. So yeah, like you said, it's the story of Chris Shiherlis, the only member of the crew that walks away.
And barely at that.
Right. So it's about his recovery and establishing a new life. But it also tells the story of how he ended up with Charlene, the sort of blazing love story that led he and Charlene, played by Ashley Judd in the 1995 movie. And I found that compelling and passionate. And then you also get to see Robert De Niro has a line in the movie, in the one scene where Hannah and Vincent, or Hannah and Neil, Hannah being Al Pacino's cop character and Neil being Robert De Niro's robber character, they have coffee at a cafe and they face off. They have a conversation that basically reveals how similar they are, that they are lone wolves so dedicated to what they do that they can't have any attachments because the rest of their life crumbles around this singular commitment.
Yes.
And Neil says,
Guy told me one time, don't let yourself get attached to anything you are not willing to walk out on in 30 seconds flat if you feel the heat around the corner.
That's an incredibly, in fact, Vincent Hanna even says in the scene, that's pretty vacant, no? And Neil says, that's the discipline. It's that, or we go both find something else to do. This book shows you how he got that cold and what he lost to get him to that place, which I thought was, of course, that's the Neil story you have to tell. Of course. And what a great way to tell it. And even though you know how things turn out, I was still caught up. So anyway, long story short, I listened to the audiobook. It's narrated by Peter Giles, who is very like movie trailer. Everything is a movie trailer.
Oh, hey, I'm celebrated voiceover artist Peter Giles, but you knew that the moment I said, oh, hey.
At first, I'll be honest, it was a little off-putting, but then I really got into it. And he does a pretty good Pacino. So he wasn't like fully doing an impression, but he was giving you those hints of Pacino and De Niro that were very satisfying. Like at one point he says, "Tell me about this carnage," and he totally did it. And so there's one other thing I wanted to say about it that I can't remember. But it's told in the present tense, which is not uncommon these days. But parts of it read very much like a screenplay. It was very chopped and clipped and hard-boiled and giving you just what you need to visualize the scene and know more. And I really enjoyed that too. So I loved it. It made me wonder if Michael Mann wanted to make Heat 2 or had a desire to make Heat 2, and he thought, well, I'll do a book, because they could do it. They could age down people, and digitally they could make this movie and it would be fantastic. But even if they don't, I really, if you're a fan of the film Heat, this is a very satisfying, it's more heat that's satisfying, and I don't think it didn't do anything to diminish my experience of the franchise, which it now is, but that was my experience. Like, oh my God, is this going to make me like Heat less? And it didn't. I was like, yes, more Heat. I like it. I'm in.
Right. And in fact, it even made me, what it did is made me appreciate Chris Shiherlis.
Yes.
So much more.
Yes.
I think while I loved his character and I loved Val Kilmer's performance, he was a third wheel to De Niro and Pacino in the film. He's the star of this book. So you really get a lot more of him and what he's capable of, because he goes in this novel far and beyond what he was required to do in the film.
Yeah.
It was interesting to see that development, how smart he really was. Do you have other side quests? You said you were going to list a bunch.
That's all I wanted to talk about is Shadow of the Tomb Raider and Heat.
I've got one item for myself. We shared Heat.
Yes.
So mine by myself is I recently finished the 2015 video game Batman Arkham Knight, which is the conclusion of the Rocksteady Studios Batman Arkham series, which began in 2009 with Batman Arkham Asylum, which I have highly recommended to you multiple times, particularly because you've said recently that Batman is your favorite superhero. It then continues in 2011 with Batman Arkham City. You've got a lot of catching up to do, Jeffrey. In all of these games, Batman is voiced by Kevin Conroy, who has voiced Batman for 3 decades in all of the animated television, film, video game franchises since Batman animated series debuted in 1992.
Wow.
30 years this man has been the voice of Batman in all of those media. Kevin Conroy sadly passed away last month, November 10th, 2022, at the age of 66 after a fight with cancer. Rest in peace, Kevin Conroy, voice of Batman for 3 decades. Jeff, you and I were halfway through high school when Batman the Animated Series first aired, and he has been our Batman's voice ever since. That concludes our side quests at the Campbell Cafe. Time for us to quit monkeying around, get back on our reindeers or something, I don't know, and head into Act 2.
I am vengeance. I am the night. I am Batman!
Act 2 begins with the Road of Trials, or Tests, Allies, and Enemies. Having crossed the first threshold, the hero meets allies, makes enemies, and must pass a series of tests to prove their worthiness. Allies. Papa Elf, played by Bob Newhart, and generally Buddy's North Pole extended family. All of the elves, they have embraced him, let him live with them. In the human world, Emily Hobbs, played by Mary Steenburgen. Bergen or Bergen? If we're pronouncing it the German way, I think it's Bergen. Anyhow, so Emily Hobbs, she is the wife of Walter Hobbs, and she is the only person of the Hobbs family who immediately embraces Buddy and seems excited when Walter, I'm getting ahead of myself here, but when Walter informs her that apparently I have an adult son, she's excited about the prospect. This is like neat to her.
Super generous, loving person.
And Jovi, the angel-voiced Toy Store employee, played by Zooey Deschanel.
Toy Story employee.
Who ends up befriending and bedating Buddy. Enemies. Mr. Greenway, the very Scrooge-ish founder of Greenway Publishing, which is the children's publishing company that Walter Hobbs works for. I think Walter Hobbs, he seems to be a high-level managing director, perhaps, or head publisher or whatever. He's in a top spot at this company. And Mr. Greenway is very demanding.
And he's played by Michael Lerner, brother to famous acting teacher in Los Angeles, Ken Lerner.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I couldn't decide whether Miles Finch was an enemy or a shapeshifter. I've got him listed as an enemy, but with a question mark.
I put him as an enemy. He's the only person who does physical violence to Buddy on purpose, attacks him.
No, that's not true.
No, it's not true.
The Mall Santa.
Oh, that's true. The Mall Santa. Yeah. So, but yeah, I think he's definitely an antagonist for Buddy.
Yeah. But I was thinking shapeshifter because he's initially there to help, but not really. He's in it for his own reasons.
Right.
There's no altruism with Miles Finch at all. Okay, shapeshifters.
71 degrees.
Shapeshifters, I thought Wanda, played by Faison Love, the Toy Story manager. I keep saying Toy Story, the Toy Store manager.
He is so great in this movie. I looked him up because I'm like, who is that dude? His whole thing where he's like paranoid that they sent in a professional decorator and he's like, here, call me on the radio if you hear anything. We got to stick together. It's so good.
Walter and Michael. Walter played by James Caan. This is Buddy's birth father. And Michael, Walter's son with Emily, Mary Steenburgen's character. Michael is played by Daniel Tay, who becomes Buddy's baby brother, younger brother. He's not a baby. He's junior high age, maybe.
Yeah, 10, 11.
So that's what I've got for major characters. Is there anybody else we need to throw in?
Well, you mentioned him in Rebuttal, which is the fake Gimbal Santa.
Yeah.
And fake Santas in general. Anything that represents the fake Christmas and the fake North Pole. In fact, that may be one of the only things that Buddy does transform is he starts to realize that, this is part of Christmas spirit. It's not that he's a bad liar person. This is how they're spreading Christmas cheer.
Okay, so tests. As you said, Buddy emerges from the Lincoln Tunnel, which I don't think you're supposed to walk.
No,
through the Lincoln Tunnel.
You don't want to walk through the Lincoln Tunnel. You're without an N95 for sure. Death wish.
So the first test I saw was really a sequence of moments. It's a montage.
It's a Montague.
Buddy is trying to navigate the jungle of New York City. He doesn't understand crosswalks. He takes every handout, leaflet that's offered on the street so much to the point where they stop giving them to him. He thinks that a coffee shop's world's best coffee sign is legitimate and cheerfully congratulates the staff on their achievement. Yeah. He picks gum. He doesn't listen to Santa. He picks gum off of a subway entrance railing and starts chewing it and likes it and starts picking all of it off of I almost threw up in my mouth when he started doing that. He thinks a revolving door is a playground ride. And the purpose of all of this is to show Buddy has a very childlike development. He looks at everything with childlike wonder.
Yeah, stunted. He's so socially stunted as like a 8-year-old.
That's a great word for it, yeah. The next test...
Well, okay, can I just pop in there?
No. The next test... What?
No, I think you're right that Montague is so great. The juxtaposition I was seeing, yes, he's socially stunted, but also he is the anathema of the cynical New Yorker. He turns every ordinary, mundane annoyance into a game. He's like Mary Poppins, and he never loses that childlike. It's the thing that he spreads in the whole movie is this. He never gets over that. He will enjoy the tickly shoe shine no matter how long he lives in New York. That's what he does. Like, that's who he is. And so while they are all, like you said, they're failures to acclimate to his new surroundings, he's a catalyst hero. So really, it's not he who has to adjust to the environment. It's the other way around. The environment and the denizens of New York have to adjust to him. This is Christmas cheer, 24/7, flyers, hopscotch on the crosswalk, all of it. Gum. Oh.
Him collecting the leaflets that are being handed out. He's like, thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
That's so funny. Yeah. Because that's like so annoying when people are trying to hand you flyers and he's like, I'm into it.
Yeah. They slap your face with them. Take this. I don't want your peep show. I don't want your peep show pamphlet. All right. Next test is meeting Dad. Buddy, this surprised me. I thought the movie was going to be him searching New York City for Dad, but no, he finds him immediately. And that's because Papa Elf says your father's name is Walter Hobbs. There's no hunt needed because he knows exactly who and where his father is. So he's basically given the address.
Yeah.
Buddy goes to the Empire State Building. He doesn't know how the elevator works. So he's trapped in there until some other guy walks in and pushes a button. And Buddy's like, ooh, it's pretty. And so he lights up all the buttons, and this poor guy has to ride up
all the way
however
up
many, stopping at every floor. I live on the 3rd floor of my apartment building. And when I get in at the garage level and then go to the 1st level, and somebody gets on, and then I go to 2nd level. I am so annoyed. By the time I get to my 3rd level, I'm like, oh my God, this is a 5-hour elevator ride.
Did your blood pressure shoot up when he smashes all those buttons?
That's just 3 levels. The Empire State Building is, I don't even know how tall it is, 100-something.
Sorry I can't ride with you the rest of the way up, but this is where my dad works. Well, have a good time. Oh, I forgot to give you a hug.
He arrives at the office, and Deb, the receptionist, played by Amy Sedaris, thinks that Buddy is a Christmas gram and lets him into Walter's office. And the whole office is like crowded around Walter's office door to watch the Christmas gram. And he's not a Christmas gram at all. He's just like, you're my dad and I love you so much. And Walter's like, oh, don't you guys usually like sing a song or something? And this is James Caan being James Caany with very dry, almost monotone voice.
Yeah.
He's just not having it. He's not having it. So finally, he asks security to come throw Buddy out when Buddy's singing this song about you're my dad. I'll play the clip, but
I'm here with my dad, and we never met, and he wants me to sing him a song. And I was adopted, but you didn't know I was born. So I'm here now. I found you, Daddy. And guess what? I love you. I love you. I love you.
Well,
That was weird.
Yeah, that's a fail for sure to
Yes.
to get his dad on board.
Everything's a fail. All of the tests are fails. As the security guards are throwing Buddy out onto the street, they say, why don't you go back to Gimbel's? So the next test is Gimbel's. Buddy finds the department store across the street, goes in. He can't, again, doesn't know how escalators work, so he's scared and he tries to step on and then he jumps off and all these people are lining up behind him, getting annoyed with him.
That's a very kid thing. That the way he played that was so legit. My daughter's still terrified. And to watch him like try to step on and then not, and then get on and like be out of balance. Will Ferrell is a genius. Just that one sequence. He totally was a 10-year-old child in that sequence. Brilliant.
So the manager, Wanda, played by Faison Love, the reason the character's name is Wanda, by the way, was that Wanda Sykes had originally been cast in the role. And so a name tag was made. Faison Love demanded to be able to use Wanda Sykes' name tag. So that's why his character's name is Wanda.
Hell yes.
Anyway, he mistakes Buddy for an employee because Buddy's dressed in his elf costume. He has no other clothes. He's an elf. So, of course, he's got the bright green tunic and the yellow tights and the green hat. And
curly shoes.
Wanda drags Buddy into the toy store and says, it's time for the Santa announcement. And, of course, Buddy completely overreacts, thinking that it's real.
Okay, people, tomorrow morning, 10 a.m., Santa's coming to town. Santa!
Oh, my God! Santa here? I know him.
And here Buddy meets Jovi, played by Zooey Deschanel, and harasses her about Christmas spirit and singing. And Jovi says, I can sing, I just choose not to. I'm not comfortable singing in front of other people. The store closes for the night, and everybody goes home except Buddy, who spends the night decorating. It's this montage of him. We see him cutting out paper snowflakes and building Lego sets and all kinds of stuff. While this is going on, we cut to Walter, who is at home with his family, but he doesn't eat dinner with his wife and son. He says, I've got work to do. I'm gonna eat in my office. But while he's in his office, he's not working. He's looking at his old yearbook and finds a photo of him and Susan Wells, the mother of Buddy. So the Gimbel's test, pass or fail, we don't really know yet. Buddy he has found a place to be in Gimbel's where he is sort of welcomed. At this point, Jovi is holding him at arm's length because he's odd.
Yeah.
He makes her uncomfortable because he's very aggressive about Christmas spirit and singing Christmas carols.
To me, all the tests were thrown into the category of whether or not Buddy succeeds in transforming the person or the environment into his idyllic version of Christmas spirit.
Yeah.
And so like the decorating of the store is a pass, but everyone else in the movie, every their character, he has to chip away at them to get them on board, with the exception of Emily, whom he wins over rapidly, but not completely. She still thinks he's deluded, but she accepts him anyway.
Everybody seems to think he has a mental illness.
Yeah.
That's the way he's treated, especially in New York.
And oddly, it's only Dad that tries to take him to go get treatment. I mean, that he's the only one who says, hey, maybe he should get checked out, and takes him to a freaking doctor. He does it under the guise of get him off my back, but he takes him. Like, that's a caring move to actually take someone in to go get help.
Right, which surprises me that he is on the naughty list, because Walter is not completely bad.
No.
He's not evil, and I think maybe that, we'll talk about it later. I don't want to get ahead of ourselves.
Okay.
Next test. The next morning, Buddy is still decorating the store, and he hears singing. He hears somebody singing Baby It's Cold Outside. We see now Jovi is in the shower singing the song, and so he sits on the sink, and he's
in the department store. There's a shower like in the
locker room,
the staff area, and there's a shower there, and she's singing. Yeah,
right. He is quietly singing the male duet portion of the song until the big finale, and then he belts it out. And she's like, what the? So she wraps the shower curtain around herself and like screams at him, get out, get out. And the first time I laughed in this movie was Buddy putting his hands over his eyes and like sprinting across the locker room for the door, but slamming into the lockers because he missed. That was the first time, Jeff, I'll be honest with you, I was not enjoying this movie.
Oh, no.
That's the first time I laughed out loud.
Okay.
The final test that I saw was Buddy tries to deliver a gift to his dad at the Empire State Building, but security sees him in the lobby and they don't even let him get to the elevator. They snag him and chuck him back outside. He's like, but he's my dad. He hands the gift to the security guards, like, well, please just give this to him and let him know that it's from his son and his son loves him very much. That's kind of where I saw the end of tests. I really had a difficult time with the second act of this film, because I did not see a really strong ordeal as we typically see them. So I really struggled with the center of this film. I'm going to end my test there. Do you have other tests?
I do, and I did see a strong ordeal and reward, so I'm wondering if we're going to, because, we often differ by a couple minutes of running time where tests end and approach begins. That's a fairly common thing for you and I. And sometimes we don't even point it out. We just roll into it. But I wonder if we're going to differ in ordeal and reward. I guess I'll just go through the next couple of points that I still see as tests.
Okay.
And I guess I'm bleeding into your approach, maybe even your ordeal. So I guess we'll just see how this goes.
Quit speculating. Tell the people what they want to hear.
Good point. So after the shower incident, Jovi confronts Buddy about, were you watching me in the shower? What was that about? And he tells her that you have the most beautiful singing voice in the whole world. And you can see her,
whole wide world.
You can see her begin to crack her defensiveness, because there appears to be no creeper about him. He just appears to be what he is on the surface. And that compliment is clearly hits her right where she needs validation. And so I think you see her sort of start to accept him. So I called that a pass test. And then the confrontation with the fake Santa, I also called a test, and one of his biggest failures, because he thinks it's really Santa, and then he goes up close and sees that it's not, and starts confronting him right in front of the kids. And
you sit on a throne of flies.
On a throne of flies, and then rips his beard off, and then a fight ensues.
Simpsons did it.
That's right. And then a fight ensues, and they end up destroying a lot of the decorations that he's created, including this amazing New York skyline that he's created with Lego. So I saw that as really a failure, because his transformation is starting to crumble. He's really not getting things across to people. The gift he delivers to his dad is a card featuring the photo of Walter and his high school girlfriend, Susan, college girlfriend, Susan. And he gives him the lingerie he had picked out on the first floor of Gimbel's. That's a fail.
Again, he has no idea what it is, but the little sign on the rack says "for someone special." So he's like, oh, well, my dad's special, so I guess this is what...
And then Buddy ends up in jail for his assault on Santa, and Walter bails him out. I struggled between cutting it there and a couple more bullet points, but I think that's where I'd cut it.
Oh, wow.
Because the next part really leads into what I see as the inmost cave. So this is my segment, so I guess I'll keep at it. Approach to the inmost cave. The hero reaches the edge of a dangerous place where the object of his quest is hidden. Walter takes him to the doctor, and actually I had said that he does it out of a sense of wanting to care for Buddy, but he doesn't. He just wants to find out if he's biologically really his son, so he can ditch him if he's not.
Right.
So he takes him to the doctor to get his finger pricked, and we meet Happy Hogan, a.k.a. Jon Favreau, the doctor, in his cameo.
Continuing the trend of directors of films appearing as doctors.
That's right. M. Night Shyamalan, right?
Shyamalan did it in
as a doctor. Yes. Directors, write yourself a doctor into the script. And he's a very funny sequence where Buddy doesn't know how to be at a doctor's office, and he's wiggling and trying to get away from the finger prick, and then gets pricked in the finger. Ow! But we find out he is biologically Walter's son. And then we get Walter refusing the call of being a father and getting mentorship from Happy about what Buddy might need. It's just acceptance and love, and then he'll let go of the whole fantasy of being an elf. This is definitely the beginning of Approach to the Inmost Cave, because Buddy is now invited into Walter's life in a very real way. He's coming home with Walter. So Walter tells his wife, and she's accepting and open and excited, which is amazing. What a loving person to hear that you're husband has a 30-year-old son from some other woman and be like, oh my gosh, bring him in, make him part of the family.
Right.
So they walk into the apartment, and Buddy has decorated the place like crazy. And he tells, at the dinner table, he tells this crazy sounding story of his journey from the North Pole. He pounds an entire 2-liter bottle of Coke, and then possibly the best film belch in film history. He puts maple syrup on his spaghetti. So this is a pass because though it's weird, for a moment, they're all eating together at the table. Dad's not at work. He's at the table. For a moment, as weird as they are, they're a family. And some of these I still think I would call tests, but we'll just keep going. He demands a tuck-in from Walter, and he actually gets it. Walter, against his better judgment, tucks Buddy in, and then Buddy goes further. So you get a tickle fight, and that's where he draws the line. Nope, I'm not going to tickle you. I'm not going to say I love you, but he got the tuck-in. And then there are these more family moments, but what we're seeing is Buddy getting deeper into the dynamic of Walter's inner life and wrecking it. He is disassembling the things that Walter has in place. Now, the things that Walter has in place are dysfunctional. His job is dysfunctional. His family is dysfunctional, but he has it. He likes to be in control. He's the boss. And Buddy is subverting all of that and getting closer and closer to inevitable conflict between Buddy's outlook and approach to life and Walter's. That's really the crux of this movie. It's about the transformation that Buddy causes in everybody, but mostly in Walter. So there's a great scene, breakfast. He's made breakfast and lunch. He's got like spaghetti with maple syrup in a Ziploc bag that he tries to give.
Oh, so gross.
Walter.
Him putting maple syrup on everything just made my teeth hurt.
I was really tempted to try maple syrup and pasta. That for some reason that appealed to me. At work, on his way to work, Walter answers the phone and it's Buddy, and he's basically like afraid of the radiator. So it's kind of like a, can you comfort me, Dad? And Walter says, I'm hanging up now, but he says it 3 times before he hangs up. So again, his contact with Buddy is increasing. His walls are starting to come down. He's allowing more Buddy.
Yeah, he does speak to Buddy as though Buddy is a child, not a 30-year-old man with the mind of a child. And I mean, he may be off-put by Buddy, but he is still trying to be nice to him.
He's answering the phone, whereas when he first sees Buddy, he just wants nothing to do with him. And then at work, we start to see the beginning, the next stage of the threat to Walter's job is that Greenway confronts Walter about these blank pages. Walter, in the first few scenes of the movie, gets a proof or gets a copy of a book that's been printed and it's got missing pages. And he just says, ship them. The kids won't know the difference. And Greenway, his boss, it's his boss or somebody higher up in the totem pole.
It's Mr.
Greenway Publishing. So right, duh.
It's the owner.
He's the owner. He comes and confronts Walter and says, you have to fix this, and we're going to have a new book, and we're going to ship it first quarter, and you have to work on Christmas Eve and come up with a perfect book pitch, or you're fired, basically.
And Greenway himself will be in the office Christmas Eve, and you'd better have a pitch or you're fired. Yeah.
Yes. So this is perfect approach to the inmost cave, because now we've set up, this is the crux point of your job. Whatever happens outside the rest of the movie, you will lose your job if you do not succeed in this one scene that is inevitably coming. The next bullet point, I think, could be its own ordeal and reward. But because it happens here in the sequence of the film, I'm just going to talk about it, which is Buddy waits outside Michael's school for him to get out of school. And then when he walks down the steps, hey, Michael, it's Buddy, your brother. Hey. And Michael's trying to ignore him. He doesn't want to be embarrassed in front of his friends, but Buddy is persistent and follows him through his walk home and just peppering him with questions. And I saw a dog today. And blah, blah, And then I think they're in Central Park. They are waylaid by a group of bullies who attack them with snowballs.
Yeah.
And these are the most consistent, symmetrically produced snowballs ever. So Buddy helps him. Buddy, having grown up in the North Pole, is like a snowball pro. And he defeats, with his amazing snowball throwing acumen, he defeats these bullies and really gains Michael's acceptance and kind of his affection. So to me, that was like
respect.
and respect. perfectly put. So to me, that was their little mini ordeal and reward because now he's won an ally.
Okay, I like that.
And as that ally, he helps him in what becomes the approach to the romantic ordeal meeting with the goddess. Later in the film, Michael encourages him, you should ask Jovi out. You really like her. And so in a very awkward sort of invitation, Buddy asks her out to go eat food. And she says, I'm free Thursday. And they do it. And then in another moment of the plot getting thicker, things fraying, Walter and his wife argue about whether Buddy should stay. And Emily, her argument is, hey, at least Michael is happy. Like though he's causing chaos, he's having a positive impact on the family. And then the last segment before ordeal, in my analysis, is taking Buddy to work. So Walter takes Buddy to work. He's now invited him into the next most crucial element of his life. He's already accepted him into his home life, and he's caused havoc there. Now he's inviting him to his work life. We already know that the stakes are high for Walter, so this is the beginning of like biting your nails. Oh God, this is going to go badly, right? Walter has a brilliant idea that he'll send Buddy to the mailroom to work. But man, the mailroom is the belly of the beast in an office building, right? It's kind of a central hub, and the higher-ups may not think it's important, but he gets down there and he's like, oh my gosh, the little pneumatic tubes, it's sucky. And he sticks his face to the side of the tube. And then the ex-con next to him is pouring, I don't know what kind of liquor it is, brandy or whiskey or something into his coffee. And Buddy thinks it's syrup, so he drinks some, and now they get smashed.
He pours the entire bottle into his coffee. You put syrup in your coffee? Why didn't I think of that? And just gets smashed.
So then they get drunk, and he's won over the ex-con now. They're bonding as they lie drunkenly on this mail sorting table. Meanwhile, upstairs, Walter's staff writers, who have been tasked with come up with a pitch or we're all toast, they're persuading Walter they should bring in this famous children's author, Miles Finch, for the big pitch that's going to happen on Christmas Eve. Miles Finch is a brilliant guy. He's going to come in, he's going to knock Greenway's socks off, and they're all going to be saved. So again, setting up that crucial scene that we know is coming. So they get Finch on the phone, and Finch is he's not a fun, happy children's author. He's like an aggressive negotiating, I want this kind of Mercedes to pick me up. The interior has to be 71 degrees. He's basically like the rock star with his outrageous dressing room writer.
Right.
And then Deb interrupts the call to say, hey, there's commotion in the mailroom. And Walter's like, no, don't ruin this call. Don't ruin this call. And they barely convince him to come. And his last line is 71 degrees. Buddy is transforming even the mailroom. And this transformation is now dangerous to Walter's family piece, and it's dangerous to Walter's business. And to me, this all leads into what becomes the ordeal. And I will pass the conch.
Whoa. You said you think you were bleeding into my ordeal. Buddy, I'm going to tell you, we're in the road back. This is my road back stuff.
Oh, wow.
I initially had, I know where you're going. And I initially had that, but it happens deep into the film.
Yeah,
and I thought
pretty late.
That can't be it then. So, okay, the next segment is the ordeal. The hero faces the ultimate test, often risking death to overcome their worst fear, sometimes actually appearing to die. Buddy's confrontation and brawl with the fake Santa demolishing. And the reason I had it as the ordeal is because it demolishes this Christmas that he has created in the toy store. It frightens all of the children. They've watched this Santa, who they think is Santa, his beard being ripped off, and it destroys the moment for them. Now these kids are scarred. Suddenly they know, oh, there's fake Santa.
Yeah, and he's destroyed some Christmas spirit. He's lowered the Christmas spirit instead of raising it. Yeah,
and he gets fired, although he didn't actually really ever work there anyway, but he's thrown in jail with all these roughnecks.
You just presented some really good arguments about why that's an ordeal. I don't think,
don't you patronize me.
I don't patronize bunny rabbits.
So,
no, I think you came up with those are really good points. He degrades Christmas spirit. He he dethroned Santa. I think those are ordeal elements, if nothing else. I will agree with that.
Continuing the ordeal is Walter's discovery that Buddy really is biologically his son. This is the worst news for Walter because he's been trying to ditch this guy. Now that he's really his son, does he have some obligation to take care of him? Obviously, the man is disturbed and he needs some help, but Walter now has to think, am I the one to do that? Am I equipped to deal with this? This is an upending of my life now with Buddy in the family. The last moment of ordeal that I have is when Michael encourages Buddy to ask Jovi on a date, because I'm thinking at this point, Buddy, like we've said multiple times, he's got the mind of a child. When you're that age, for most boys, asking a girl on a date is an ordeal.
Yeah, I think that's...
Again, we're like literally 20 minutes behind you, probably, in terms of runtime. But all of this happens right in the center of the film, which partially, whether right or not, dictated my placement. So, anyhow.
I'll buy that. So here's what I saw as the ordeal. And yeah, I mean, I guess I always get in trouble when I invoke delayed crisis, but I was looking at the runtime and having those considerations too. I guess when I look at this movie, I think of the key point here is, can Buddy successfully get his dad to be his dad and integrate into human society? And so for ordeal, the first thing I recognized was meeting with the goddess, represented as a mystical marriage of the hero with the queen goddess. And of course, there's no marriage in this movie. There is a romantic comedy element, and the ordeal is that date. So far, he's been very stumbling along with his relationship, this budding relationship with Jovi. But here, he really brings her into his world and has her see it the way he does. The best cup of coffee, which obviously isn't the best cup of coffee, but he's showing her, look, and he's skipping down the street, and he's taking her to see trees that he thinks are big, and she's like, no, I want to show you the really big trees. So now she's not only accepting his world, she's starting to see her own world that way. Oh, wow, big trees really are awesome. Here's this. And if you live in New York, the Rockefeller Center tree is sort of like, I don't know, it's like Disneyland. It's huge and it's amazing, but it's also like a tourist thing that happens every year. And you get the feeling that she wants to share that with him now. And then they have their kiss on the ice rink, which is as close to a consummation as you get in this kind of a light romantic comedy.
Everything you just said, though, is exactly why I have the date as the reward.
And then the hero experiencing death, the Miles Finch meeting. Enter Peter Dinklage as this just badass executive. And of course, Peter Dinklage is a little person.
As soon as I saw that it was Peter Dinklage was Miles Finch, I knew immediately what was going to happen. I thought, oh no, Buddy's going to totally...
So it's a great setup. And Dinklage, I gained respect for him when he was on Nip Tuck. And I just thought, wow, he's actor. And when he shows up in this movie, I jarred out of the movie for a minute and went, oh God, he's a little person and they're going to make elf jokes. And Dinklage just comes in there. He owns it. He's like, I'm a badass, high-powered writer and I'm not taking any crap from you. And so, right. So Buddy interrupts this crucial meeting that's actually starting to go well. And then Buddy comes in to tell his dad, I'm in love. And isn't it amazing? And then Buddy sees Peter Dinklage.
Does Santa know that you left the workshop?
We're all laughing our heads off.
Did you have to borrow a reindeer to get down here?
And it's just, you can see everyone else in the room go, oh God. So, of course, Miles Finch stands up for himself. You call me elf one more time. And of course, Buddy does. And there's a fight. And Walter throws Buddy out of his life. It's like, you've ruined everything. Get out of my life.
Yeah.
Just ends it right there. I've had enough. The next thing we see Buddy is he's writing a goodbye note on the Etch-a-Sketch.
Yeah.
And he leaves it on the table with his snow globe and walks alone through the streets of New York with no coat. This is the death of his hope, which was to be reunited and be with his dad forever and ever. And that hope is now dead.
Yeah.
So I saw that as the true death of Buddy's journey here.
That's great. I agree with you. That was where I had it originally before I second, triple, quadruple guessed myself.
Is this the first time you've seen Elf?
Yeah.
Oh, because you don't like Will Ferrell.
I am not a Will Ferrell fan. And so I had never had any interest in watching this movie.
And then I put it on the list, and now you were forced to by our patrons. That brings us to reward, seizing the sword, aka the ultimate boon. Having faced their worst fear, the hero seizes the object of their quest. The object of Buddy's quest is his father's undying affection and acceptance. So the writers find Finch's notebook. After the meeting's over, they find that Finch has left his notebook, and they cobble together a last-minute pitch. And here comes the big meeting with Greenway. And he's about to begin the pitch when Michael runs in and interrupts the big meeting. And he tells his dad, Buddy's gone. I'm scared. Walter says, hey, let me finish this meeting and we'll figure it out. Michael's had enough. He says, figure what out? Buddy cares about everyone. All you care about is yourself. And he tells Greenway, we're going to have to reschedule. Greenway threatens his job, and Walter says, up yours. Don't tell my kid what to do.
Yeah.
And he walks out. Walter has changed. Walter is now sacrificing his career to go pursue Buddy. That is the biggest reward you could give Buddy after all this that he's been through and after risking the death of his relationship with his father. So that's reward 1. Reward 2, Buddy is distraught and he's standing on a bridge and he sees Santa fly by.
In a It's a Wonderful Life homage.
Yeah, oh, yes. Duh. He sees Santa fly by and the Christmas cheer engine. Oh, no, not the Christmas cheer engine. The Christmas cheer engine's been running low for years. The booster engine that his dad built to keep the sleigh going is malfunctioning, and the sleigh's going down in Central Park. So he runs after the sleigh to find Santa, who then says, I need an elf's help. I need you. You're the most elf person. You're more of an elf than anyone I've ever met. I need you to fix my sleigh. And he says, I'll try it. Papa taught me how. And Santa sends him off to find the engine so he can fix it. Now, Buddy, not only has he gained the acceptance of his father, unbeknownst to him at this point, but he has now gained, I am an elf. I wasn't a misfit all along. Not only am I accepted in the human world, I'm accepted in the elf world. That's a huge reward for him after all he's been through. And then Walter and Michael find Buddy in the park, and he says,
I know, Buddy, there's something I have to tell you right now. I didn't mean anything I said back there, not a word. I know you may be a little chemically imbalanced, but you've been right about a lot of things. I don't want you to leave. You're my son, and I love you.
He gets the I love you from his dad, and he takes them to Santa's sleigh. So to me, those are all massive rewards for the risks he's taken.
Wow.
That's where I saw the end of reward.
For me, all of that is the beginning of the resurrection. Buddy's being needed to play an elf role. That is a resurrection. Walter and Michael finding Buddy, and Walter saying, I didn't mean any of those things I said. I don't want you out of my life. You're my son and I love you. That's a resurrection of their relationship, the home life that we've been talking about.
Interesting. I see what you mean.
Okay, so I guess I'll just go with my reward, since that's the segment we're talking about. For my analysis, a reward is Buddy having that home life now. Walter and Emily invite him to stay, to live with them, or at least to stay. She says, how long are you planning to stay? So it's obviously they're not intending to let him stay there forever because he's an adult and he should have his own place. But being invited into the family life, what Buddy wanted all along, that was a reward on that front. And then Buddy's date with Jovi was the reward on the romantic front. And the kiss. He kisses her on the cheek and she says, you missed, and then kisses him on the lips. Those were the rewards that I saw from my path that I was taking through this film.
I can see that.
Well, are we ready to skate over to the Vogler Lounge for our themed beverage?
I'm ready. Welcome to the Vogler Lounge. I notice it's well decorated with garlands and lights, Christmas tree in the corner, fire in the fireplace.
They do good work here.
Dan, I am curious to see what you have chosen as your elf-themed beverage.
Okay, this year I have from Rogue Brewing, the company that made your beverage last episode.
That's right, Dead Man Whiskey.
I have Rogue's Honey Mama's Santa's Private Reserve.
Ooh.
It says it is a stout with natural tahini, tangerine, and chocolate flavors.
Whoa.
I get the feeling that this might taste like one of those chocolate orange candies.
Oh.
I love those.
So that's what you're going in expecting your palate
That's
to
what I'm
find?
expecting. I didn't know what tahini was, so I looked that up. It was described as a Middle Eastern condiment, a paste made with sesame seeds. So it's got a nutty, earthy, slightly bitter flavor. So in a stout with tangerine and chocolate flavors, I think maybe that'll balance those sweetnesses. 6.5 point alcohol by volume, 19 IBU, so not at all hoppy.
Oh, I love that sound.
That is really dark, as one would expect from a stout. The head is also dark. It is a very tan color.
That is beautiful.
It looks exactly what I would expect from a stout. Oh, you know when I said the chocolate orange?
Is that what it smells like?
That's kind of what it smells like, yeah.
Oh.
I can smell the chocolate, but there's also that really sweet citrusy scent that you get from oranges, tangerines. That is exactly what I expected. It's great. This is liquid chocolate orange candy.
Oh my God. Wow, nailed it.
This is so good. Rogue, awesome job.
How many did you buy?
Awesome job. I bought a 6-pack.
Oh,
it was only
good.
available in 6-packs, so
Yeah.
I get 5 more of these.
Well done.
Well, probably 2 because I'm sure I'll share with my wife. But
That's smart.
there's a much lighter quality to this. I'm talking about mouthfeel.
Yeah.
Stouts sometimes can be really thick. I'm thinking of something like Old Rasputin.
Yeah, you couldn't drink 3 or 4. You could only drink 1.
Of Old Rasputin, yeah. Well, that's like 9-something% alcohol.
Imperial.
So yeah. But it's got some body to it, but it's not super thick. It's almost halfway toward ale in terms of the mouthfeel. It's interesting. I really like it though.
That's great. I love it.
It's very good. If you see that there was only one on the shelf too, so I feel like I got very lucky with this. If you see it in your store and you like stouts, give this a try, man. This is good stuff.
Tell us the name again.
Rogue Honey Mama's Santa's Private Reserve. 2022.
What I really wanted to do is find out what the ex-con had in that 5th and get coffee and pour it in there. But I stopped. I freeze-framed. I zoomed in. I could not figure out what that was. It looked to me like brandy, but instead I went with Buddy's love of maple syrup, and I made myself a maple old-fashioned.
Oh, nice.
This is 2 ounces of bourbon. I used Maker's 46. Maker's is my go-to bourbon, and when I want to feel like a fancy boy, I do Maker's 46.
Fancy boy.
Half a teaspoon of maple syrup, 3 to 4 dashes of Angostura bitters. Is that how you say that? And then an orange peel from my neighbor's orange tree. They have an orange tree that hangs over our wall, so we claim the right to any oranges that are on our side of the property.
That is the law. If the branch is in your property, you get whatever fruit drops onto your lawn.
So I love bourbon and I love old fashions, and there's never been a fresher orange peel. I should have used a globe ice sphere like a snowball, but I didn't think of that until now. So just pretend there's
What do you
snowball.
have? Just regular ice cubes?
Just a big old whiskey rock.
Oh, a big cube. Okay.
Yeah, big cube.
That works.
Here we go. I smell orange and then a little bit of bourbon, but it's not strong. So I think the sugar or the maple syrup must be tempering the scent. Here we go.
Are you not smelling maple syrup?
No.
Really? Oh.
Oh, yeah.
Have you had that before, or is this a new beverage for you?
I've had a maple old fashioned, but it had like cinnamon and a bunch of other stuff in it that made it less pure. This is like Aunt Jemima poured a little dribble into my old fashioned, so it tastes a little Christmassy. Mm-hmm. Maybe that's just my Christmas spirit. I actually would have put maybe 3/4 of a teaspoon. And normally I pull back on the sweetness, but this is really well balanced. I love Maker's 46. It's not a super fancy bourbon, but it just has a nice soft edge to it as opposed to the bite of a regular shot of bourbon. I gave myself a really big orange peel and I ran it around the edge of the glass. So I love that. Like I love the orangeness of a glass of old fashioned.
When you're done with an old fashioned, do you eat the orange peel?
I sometimes do what you do with, what are those plants called? Not avocados, the bushy looking plant
Artichoke.
that has artichokes. I kind of do what you do with an artichoke leaf, and I scrape some of the pulp off.
Okay. All right.
And I will eat the cherry in this one. But yeah, I highly recommend. I'll post, it's 2 ounces of bourbon, 3 dashes of Angostura bitters, half a teaspoon of maple syrup, orange peel, ice, cherry.
That's the thing about old fashions is you can have just a classic old fashioned, but it's versatile. You can add stuff to it to holiday it up.
Ooh, the maple just got me there. I love it. All right.
You caught a glob of the maple syrup.
I don't, or maybe it's just settling in more now that my tongue is accustomed to the bourbon taste and the orange has settled a little bit. Because when you sort of twist the orange, that oil settles, on the top of the drink, and so your first few sips are very orangey.
Yeah.
So I think now that I've maybe mixed it in a little bit more, I did stir it, and I don't regret using a big orange peel. I'm going to say I have no regrets.
No regrets.
All right, well...
no, Jeffrey.
No.
We've got business to take.
We
You
have
always
new
do this.
patrons. I
always
forget
do
that's
this.
part of
I
the
gotta
segment.
slap you. All right, before we conclude this segment of Beverage Break at the Vogler Lounge, we want to thank our 2 new sponsors. Patrons?
Patrons, I think. Patrons,
yeah. The first of whom actually joined in early November, and I think I just didn't see it when it should have been included in Cutthroat Island. So sorry for the miss there, Nelson. But Nelson Hickman, who is also a big supporter of our No Games for Old Men video game YouTube channel. So thanks for the double support there.
I've enjoyed Nelson's comments on the channel. He's like really, I learned from watching you, and then I learned from his comments. So thank you, Nelson. It's been fun interacting with you.
Also, our newest patron, Jordan Zabel, here on the podcast. So Nelson, Jordan, thank you both very much for your support. We really appreciate it. Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and bottoms up. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Act 3 of the Road...
Act 3 of the Road Elf back.
Beginning with The Road Back, where the hero is pursued by vengeful forces disturbed when they seized the object of their quest. I saw the vengeful forces beginning with Miles Finch, following the reward of Buddy's successful date with Jovi and falling in love and running into Dad's office like a child might do to say, I'm in love, and then ruining that meeting. That was the beginning of the vengeful forces for me. Him insulting Miles Finch, Peter Dinklage jumping up onto the conference table, sprinting across it, and then doing a flying kick to Buddy's chest and just beating the crap out of Buddy.
How much fun must that sequence have been to film?
Walter then throwing Buddy out of his life, saying, "Get out! I don't want to see you anymore." That to me was a vengeful force. Following the reward of being invited into the family. Now he has caused so much chaos that his dad has kicked him out, terminating the familial relationship that Buddy had wanted. Finally, Buddy running away, leaving that Etch-a-Sketch note that you mentioned, and Michael interrupting Walter's pitch meeting with Mr. Greenway. Walter then choosing to walk out on his job to go look for Buddy. That was a vengeful force, not for Buddy, but it was a vengeful force for Walter. It was for the family, really. Those were the 2 massive road back elements that I saw.
My road back, there's an element that Vogler talks about of crossing the return threshold. The hero has gone into the special world and accomplished some great task. The special world being New York, not the North Pole, but New York in the quote-unquote real world. And he has seized otherworldly knowledge, enlightenment, and now it's his challenge to take that back into the real world. So to me, the road back is the vengeance that the real world takes as he tries to impose Christmas cheer on the real world, not just on his family now, but on the real world. So New Yorkers have spotted something falling out of the sky. And a little girl who's seen it claims that it's Santa's sleigh. And now the news is here in the form of newbie reporter Charlotte Denon. A crowd has gathered. And then we see footage. Someone has caught amateur footage of Buddy moving through Central Park. And I laughed here because it's 2003 early cell phone footage, from like their crappy flip phone camera, like half a megapixel. And now it would be like someone's iPhone 14 Pro with a zoom lens and stuff.
He's posed like the Bigfoot photo. When they freeze frame him, it's that exact same image of him looking back over his right shoulder.
Oh, you're so right.
It's the Bigfoot.
Do you think that was intentional?
It's absolutely intentional.
Oh, you're a genius. I love it when you see stuff like that it totally goes over my head. I love that. Yeah, it's exactly right. He's like looking over his shoulder. So Jovi is watching this on the news and abandons her ramen to go to the scene. The Central Park Rangers are called in. These are the vengeful forces of reality bearing down, of the New York reality, bearing down on Christmas cheerland in the form of Santa and his sleigh and all these things that will interrupt if Santa's real, then we're all laboring under a false impression that he's not. And so here come the Rangers to crush this reality, to push it away out of the world.
Yes.
So then Buddy has, in part of what I call the reward, Buddy's reunited with Santa. He's fixing the sleigh. Walter meets Santa. So here's the ultimate symbol of cynicism is now face to face with Santa, accepts him. So his reality is being altered. And then in a further rejection of what we consider quote unquote reality, Santa reveals to Michael, not only does he know what he wants for Christmas, it's in the bag. And when he goes to collect his skateboard, we see the clausometer momentarily spikes, right? So now it's like, oh, the belief in Santa, because we've established earlier in the movie, which I don't think we discussed, that the sleigh hasn't been flying because it operates on Christmas spirit, and over time Christmas spirit has dissolved and thinned as people no longer believe. And so that's why Papa Elf had to build this like conventional engine to run the sleigh, which fails, which makes the sleigh crash. So we see now, beginning with Michael, the clausometer starting to get more Christmas spirit. That is the end of the preparations for the final battle. That's where I saw Road Back.
I included a lot of that, well, all of that in Resurrection, because Walter meeting Santa and resurrecting his belief in Santa, Michael finding the real Huff skateboard in Santa's sack, and that's the thing that he wanted, resurrecting Christmas, the beginning of the resurrection of Christmas spirit and all of that stuff. So those are the points I picked out. I just want to mention that the Central Park Rangers, I loved their characterization, by the way. When we hear the rookie news reporter, Charlotte, played by Claire Lautier.
Oh, great performance.
She says that the Central Park Rangers are a seldom deployed unit and that their methods are questionable. Their crowd control methods during the Simon and Garfunkel Central Park concert in '85 are still under investigation.
So funny. And then when you see the horses, right, it's almost like the shot of the Nazgul from
That's
Lord
exactly
of the
the point I was about to make.
Oh.
Yes, they are the rider, the black riders from Lord of the Rings. That's how they're faceless. They don't speak, but they just ride at you on these horses. I kind of wish that there had been a little more to them.
Yeah.
Given their setup.
Dan, I love doing this podcast with you when we both we geek out on a shot or a moment. Like you brought up the Bigfoot shot, and then we both saw Nazgul, and we're both thinking, wow, Return of the King was the same year, but this was 2 years earlier. You saw the Nazgul. Like, I just love that we're like drawing all those lines. It's so much fun. I love the analysis and the challenge of looking at these movies inside out. But I also, my favorite part about the podcast is just getting to talk about movies with my best friend. Like that's the juice. And I miss doing it in person and pulling the bottle out of the bag, but Man, this is good too. And we get superior audio quality. Okay. That leads us to Resurrection. The hero faces death one more time in an ordeal, battle, or showdown. This time the danger is on the broadest scale of the entire story. So now we've got Buddy the Elf essentially proving to the world that Christmas spirit is worth having. The resurrection is getting Santa's sleigh to fly again, right? Bringing Christmas spirit back to the world, not just to him and his father and reuniting with his father. Now the battle is global. And so in come the Rangers. Buddy finds the engine and returns it to Santa. Santa says, I knew you could do it. And then Michael, now convinced, says, well, why can't we just bring the news here and show you on camera and then everyone will believe? And Santa says, no, that's not the point. It's not about seeing, it's about believing. Right. And Michael makes off with the list, this big handwritten tome of every name of everyone and what they want for Christmas.
I love the conceit of that, by the way. This just giant, ancient-looking book that has somehow everyone's name in the world listed and what they want for Christmas. But doesn't that change every year? And so is it a new book, or does the text magically change every year to update what that person wants for Christmas? Or
well, and the other thing that I love is, I think traditionally we see his list as a scroll. Like when I think about cartoons and images, it's a scroll. But this one's like, it's got to be more portable than that. This is like the Santa version of an iPad, because he said bring it with him in case he has a reference. What did that kid want?
Actually, the 2022 Santa probably does just have an iPad, I'm sure.
Yeah, exactly. He's an iPad Pro.
We gotta update this. I can't keep lugging this 40-pound book around every year.
I mean, Santa would have to leverage magic and technology as he does with his sleigh.
Exactly.
Anyway, Michael makes off with the list. Walter, in the resurrection of his own childlike Christmas spirit, literally puts on the clothing of Santa. He has now donned the skin of the that represents the spirit he's rejected for the rest of the movie. That's a resurrection. And he runs off to distract the Rangers to give them time. So Michael shows up and shows Newslady the list, trying to prove Santa is real so that the sleigh will fly. And he starts reading off what kids want. And then we cut to some characters we've seen before and not seen. And you see them going, oh my gosh, Santa knows, it's on the list, it's real. And then Charlotte's like, okay, that's cute. And then he says, well, what's your name? And he looks her up. You want a Tiffany engagement ring and for your boyfriend to stop dragging his feet already. And the look on her face is like, oh my God.
She's like, cut.
Right. Emily has seen this on the news. She's come down to Central Park to the scene. Walter and his wife reunite.
The gang's all here.
Yeah, and Walter tells her he wasn't lying, and she says Merry Christmas. So now their brokenness is healed because he is now vulnerable and a believer, and his, Emily's energy of acceptance and love, he is adopted. So you get the sense that there's been a tension in their marriage, and now it's resolved, or at least it's on the path to healing. So that's a resurrection. Jovi shows up, is still hungry because she didn't eat any of her ramen. So she's really,
poor Jovi.
That made me want ramen. I don't know why. With
I
syrup.
want ramen now.
With syrup, yeah.
Oh, no.
So and this is a woman who did at the beginning of the film states, I do not like to sing in public. I don't want to sing. And now she remembers, but he told her, as he learned during elf training, the best way to spread Christmas cheer is singing loud for all to hear. So she starts to sing. Cut to the reindeer are pounding hooves. The Rangers are chasing them. They need Christmas spirit power or they're never going to get off the ground and they're going to crash and the Rangers are going to overtake them. So Jovi starts singing Santa Claus is coming to town and Emily joins in and wow, it is not in her key. And she can't quite sing the notes.
He sees you when you're sleeping.
And bless Mary Steenburgen, it's hard to sing in a film and be vulnerable. It's harder to sing badly.
He knows if you've been bad or good.
But she's into it.
I wonder if Mary Steenburgen is really not a great singer or if she sang off key intentionally just because she didn't want to upstage Zooey Deschanel. I don't know.
I got the sense that it was just right at the top of her range and she couldn't quite get there. But a great, honest, true moment that plays well on screen, right? So Michael joins in the song, and then the whole crowd, and we see the clausometer starts to twitch up. It's this gauge on his sleigh dash panel that shows how much Christmas spirit power. And the reindeer now they come off the ground. They're just a few feet above the ground, and he hits the booster on the engine that Buddy has repaired, and they're up and away. But then the engine clips the top of a statue on top of a fountain in Central Park. And again, the engine breaks away, falling to the ground. Cut to, they show caroling on the news, and then everyone across New York City is singing. They're in pubs, and they're all singing.
In the biker bar.
In the biker bar, we see the ex-con from the mailroom. Cut to Walter. He's only mouthing the words. He's not singing. And Michael berates him. He says, "Hey, you're not singing." And finally, Walter, the guy whose transformation is key to this film, starts singing. And it pushes the clausometer over the edge. The sleigh is off. It shoots into the sky right over Walter's head.
Yeah.
This is a moment that I thought, okay, I guess we'll have to go with. Everyone sees Santa in the sleigh. Everyone sees it, which renders the whole seeing, believing thing. But then the newscaster covers it by saying, "I guess we'll never know what happened this Christmas in Central Park." So Buddy has succeeded in transforming at least everyone who can see the newscast in New York City that Christmas spirit is alive again.
Merry Christmas!
Which brings us to the final segment of the hero's journey. Freedom to live or return with the elixir. The hero, having won a precious treasure or reward, now returns to the ordinary world to share the spoils of battle. Papa Elf, played by Bob Newhart, as he began the film, closes the film with a Cheryl Yost-style narration. Buddy manages to save Christmas. We see the Hobbs family together, along with Jovi, singing as Walter accompanies her on the piano.
Mm-hmm.
Walter has started his own independent publishing company, launching with a book by a brand new children's author called Elf, which presumably tells the story that we just watched.
Mm-hmm.
Buddy and Jovi then visit Papa Elf at the North Pole and present to him a little bundle of joy with the name Susie stitched onto her little swaddling blanket. Susie, probably named after Susan Wells, Buddy's real birth mother?
Maybe. I feel like there's a Christmas song that mentions a Susie.
Well, there's a Susie Snowflake.
Right. There's a Susie Snowflake, but there's like a Susie wants a something in a Christmas song. But yeah, Susie, for sure. Christmassy name, and I think you're right about naming it after Buddy's mom.
Susie, also my mom's name. So, Merry Christmas, Mom.
I still can't call her Susie after all this time. She's Mrs. Zarzana or Mrs. Dan's mom to me.
Mrs. Dan's mom.
Mrs. Dan's
I have
mom.
a hard time calling the adult parents of my friends by their names, even though we're all adults now.
Yeah.
It's just weird. It just feels disrespectful to call your dad Roger. I feel like he's still Mr. Garvin.
Yeah.
He's earned that.
He's earned it. Yeah.
So roll end credits. Now, that concludes the movie. Christmas is saved. The families are saved. Papa Elf still gets to see his adopted son, Buddy, and his new wife, I guess. I don't know. But, hey, guys, Zooey Deschanel in a pink elf costume. That's the return with the elixir right there.
Boom.
Jeff, I'd say we're getting pretty good at this whole saving Christmas thing. We need to increase the stakes. Next year, you don't get to fight me on this. Time to toughen you up. Zombie Christmas movies.
No.
Listeners and patrons, thank you so much for joining us for this episode. We hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please share us with your friends and family. Spread the word.
It makes a difference when you like our posts on social media, when you subscribe, leave a review. That's really how people find this podcast. And our Christmas wish is that we share our own hero's journey spirit with as many people as possible. So if you'd like to support the podcast further, please visit patreon.com/heroesjourneypodcast. Check out the benefits and throw a couple bucks our way so we can buy new headphones and keep this podcast alive.
High quality is what we're aiming for.
Yeah, we want to keep up and keep improving the quality of the podcast and spend more time on it and make that part a bigger part of our lives.
So with that said, thank you to all patrons who make this show possible, including our demigod tier patrons or the nice list. John Peterson Jr., Scott Sanford, Ricky Garvin, Jeff Scott, Joseph Wilbur, Michelle Calderon, Ami Garvin, Salathiel Jones, Jasmine and Pete Hudson, Mike and Susie Zarzana, Randy Sparks, and Justin Purvis.
Major thanks to Taylor Jordan for composing our Hero's Journey music, so anthemic, and thanks to Jason Dorff for our inimitable episode artwork. If you want to check them out, you should hire them to do stuff for you because they're both awesome to work with and super talented. You can find links to their portfolios on the About page at heroesjourneypodcast.com.
Elf is copyright 2003, New Line Cinema. Thanks again for listening. Until next time,
journey on.
You sit on a throne of lies.